Today we're going to learn how to write decimals as fractions. Writing decimals as fractions really is a piece of cake. You can write fractions as decimals when they have easy denominators such as 10, 100, or 2 or 4. Let's look at some examples of these easy fractions that you should commit to memory soon. If you have 100 on the bottom of your fraction, if 100 is the denominator, then that means you're dealing with hundredths. And we already know how to write hundredths as decimals. 17 hundredths, for example, would be written like this. A 17 with the 7 in the hundredths place. Remember, the place just to the right of the decimal is the tenths place, and the number beyond that, the decimal place beyond that is the hundredths place. So 17 hundredths is just written as 0.17. Take a look around for these other ones. How would you write 28 over 100 as a decimal? Do you see it? Hopefully you see that it will be written as 0.28 because it's 28 hundredths. Piece of cake, right? Try the next one. How about 31 over 100? Which decimal number would match that? Here it is. 0.31 or 31 hundredths. The last one down here, try that one. 53 over 100. You got it. There it is. 0.53. So if you have 100 in the denominator of your fraction, writing the decimal is really super easy. You just write 0 for your whole and then make sure you put the last digit in the hundredths place. That easy. So here's another one, 3 hundredths. This time, the number on the top, the numerator, is a single digit. We need to make sure that digit, or the last digit of the number in the numerator, is in the hundredths place. So if we have something like 3 hundredths, take a look around. We have two decimal numbers that have a 3 in them. So we have two options. Is it 0.3 or is it 0.03? All of these other numbers don't even have a 3 in them, so they don't even make sense. Remember what I just said, that 3, the numerator, or whatever the last digit is, has to be in the hundredths place. In this number, the 3 is in the tenths place. This is 3/10. This fraction would be written like that, 3/10. So 3 hundredths has to look like this. The 3 is in the hundredths place. So you write a single digit over 100. Make sure you put that in the hundredths place, 0.03. Some other easy fractions to write as decimals, 1/2. I'm sure you've heard of this before, and I'm sure some of you have already memorized the fact that 1/2, take a look. Which decimal do you think might be the equivalent to 1/2? Hopefully you remember that 0.5 is another way of writing a half. If you think about half a dollar, isn't this the same thing as 0.50 or 50 cents? Half a dollar is 50 cents, 0.5. So make sure you memorize that one if you haven't already. Another connection to money. 1/4 can also be read as 1/4. Which decimal number here do you think is the representation of 1/4? Hopefully you see it down here, 0.25. Think about that. It's like 25 cents, which is 1/4 of a dollar, 1/4 of 100. 1/4 of 100 is 0.25. Make sure you memorize that. So if 1/4 is 0.25, then 3/4 is how much money? Take a look around. Which one of these yellow decimal numbers do you think it is? Hopefully you see it. There it is. It's like 75 cents or 75 hundredths. It's like 75 hundredths or 75 cents out of $1. 3/4 is 0.75. So I'm going to skip this one over for a minute. I want you to try to commit these, what I call easy fractions, to decimals. I want you to commit them to memory. Just memorize them. I don't want to see you do any dividing or anything like that. When you see 3/10, when you see 10 on the bottom, you know it's going to have that numerator in the tenths place. If you see 100 on the bottom, the numerator is going to be in the hundredths place. Half is 0.5, 1/4 is 0.25. Please make sure you write these all down on your note sheet. Pause the video if you have to. And I want to show you another easy denominator that you can commit to memory. And those are the fifths. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, and 4/5. If you think about it, can't we write 1/5 as 2/10? Think about it. Aren't they equivalent? Isn't 5 times 2 10 and 1 times 2 2? And we know that 2/10, well, if 10 is on the bottom, then we just put the numerator 2 in the tenths place. So that's how 1/5 is equal to 0.2, because it's equal to 2/10. Just like 2/5 is also the same as 4/10, so it's 0.4. 3/5 is the same as 6/10, and that's why we write the decimal as 0.6. 4/5 is equivalent to 8/10, and that's why we write the decimal as 0.8. Make sure you've written these on your note sheet and you commit them to memory. You can start practicing them on flashcards, ask your parents to quiz you. I want you to memorize these as soon as you can. Pause the video if you didn't have enough time to copy them. Now, here's the last situation that you will need to be concerned with today. And that is when you have a fraction that doesn't have 10 or 4 or 2 or 5 or 100 in the denominator. Take a look at these denominators here. Look, 20, 25, 50. There's 25 and 20 and 50 again. Now, we already know that if we have 10 or 100 in the denominator, the fraction is really easy to write as a decimal. So if we can turn them into equivalent fractions that have 10 or 100 in the denominator, then we can easily write them as a decimal. All of these denominators are easily divided into 100. Let's start with 50, for example. You know how many times 50 goes into 100, right? How many? That's right, 2. 50 times 2 is 100. So whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator to make an equivalent fraction. If 50 times 2 is 100, 3 times 2 is 6. So 3/50 is the same thing as 6/100, and we know that to write 6/100 as a decimal, we just make sure we put a 6 in the hundredths place, which is 2 places to the right of the decimal. So that decimal is 0.06. Let's try another 50. Pause the video and try this one. Unpause it when you're finished. I hope you had a chance to try 18/50. We can easily turn this into a fraction, an equivalent fraction, with 100 on the bottom by multiplying by 2. 18 times 2 is 36, and 36/100 is written as 0.36. Is that what you got? Let's look at some of these other denominators. 25. Again, we can turn this into an equivalent fraction that has 100 on the bottom, because 25 goes into 100 evenly. Remember quarters? 4 quarters makes $1. So 25 times 4 is 100. So 9 times 4 is 36. Now that we have 100 in our denominator, all we have to worry about is placing the 6 in the hundredths place. 3 goes in the tenths, pop in my decimal, and that is my decimal number, 0.36. So now you pause the video and try this one. How would you write 10/25 as a decimal? Let's check it together. So 25 times 4 is 100. 10 times 4 is 40. So 40 hundredths is 0.40. You can also write that as 0.4. Those are the same thing. So 10/25 is the same thing as 0.4. Let's look at one last problem, and then we'll be finished for today. If I want to turn this fraction into a decimal, again, I'm going to ask myself, can I change the denominator to 10 or 100? Eventually, you're going to ask yourself, can I change it to 2 or 4 or one of those other easy denominators? Well, right now, we're focused on changing them into hundredths, and you know that 20 times what is 100? Figure it out. 20 times 5 is 100. So all we have to do is 17 times 5. Do a little figuring, and that gives you 85. And now we have it out of 100, writing the decimal, piece of cake, 0.85. Pause the video and try one more. Try writing 4/20 as a decimal using the same technique as I showed you over here. Let's check it out. So 20 times 5 is 100. So 4 times 5 is 20. And 20 hundredths can be written as 0.20 or 0.2. Great job today. Make sure you have all these notes. Go back and rewind the video. Pause it when you need to. And make sure you bring these notes to class tomorrow, and I'll see you then.